you guys could just say a little bit more about how what kind of visibility you had into how the government was reacting to events as they were taking place, and just sort of from a how'd you do your job on a daily basis kind of level, were you sort of toggling between going out into the square and reporting and talking to government officials? Did you have any sources in the military? Like, were there things that gave you sort of an inkling of how this might end that you were getting from government sources?
I would happily jump in with just one quick thing, and then everybody else needs to speak. But I would say that once the student movement happened, that it was very confusing and it was virtually impossible. At that point, the sort of power struggle narrative was inaccessible. We just didn't have any access to that. That's my personal experience, and I certainly didn't have any military sources, but maybe other people did.
It was really hard to report, what's going on. I remember on the same day the New York Times reported that this student movement has no leaders. The same day that I reported in the Wall Street Journal, I had, drinks and dinner with Wu Kai-shi and said, yeah, no, there's some people who are emerging as respected leaders. Look, there he is right over there. When the party, allowed reporting, essentially told people get out there on the streets, and that was the job of the faction. At that point, we had sources who could tell us that was happening. That we were more likely to have sources in the Zhao, Baotong, relatively liberal in terms of economic and political reforms camp than we would in the Li Peng camp. So we had
there was that funny moment though when after the military had been called forth and they stopped. Remember, they were in that they were kind of encircling Beijing, and they were basically stopped by people in villages. Later, I think the leadership had to call in more distant troops who were less aware of what was happening in the capital in order to induce them to act. But so there were those funny moments where you actually could talk to soldiers because they were stuck in villages with their armored personnel carriers surrounded by, Chinese peasants who were saying, "Don't you dare go shoot at those students in Beijing." So there was some funny.
I'm sorry, a brief commercial. Everybody's asking us about how to get online in this room.
Okay, and that gives me a chance to introduce Carroll Bogert, who also worked for Newsweek and who came in following Gorbachev. Yes?
Yes, I lived in Beijing from 85 to 87 preceding Dinda, and then I was in the Moscow bureau. So I did see it very much through, the Soviet Union was collapsing at the same time, let's not forget. 1989 was the banner year for foreign news coverage, sort of a high watermark for those of us who were foreign correspondents. And the students were, to some extent, I don't mean to overplay this, it was essentially a native phenomenon, but they were aware that Gorbachev was coming. They did want to be on the square. They were holding signs saying, "We want Glasnost too." And they were trying to send a message to their own leadership about what they saw Gorbachev as doing right, that the Chinese Communist Party had so far failed to do. And I think if you ask about a memory or an image, I just want to call forth for everybody, just for a moment, for those of you who were there, the feeling of utter joy that we had. And the extraordinary feeling that China was really speaking for the first time. I remember Tiananmen always as this torrent of words. If you were a journalist, sometimes it was very hard to get Chinese people to talk to you what they thought about politics. And suddenly everybody would talk to you about what they thought about politics. And there were signs everywhere. We were all furiously writing and dispatching and covering, and people could not stop talking. There was this explosion, this torrent of talk. And it was very exciting. And because it was so joyous, that's why the crackdown was so emotional also for us all. And I have this, it's terrible to have a hotel, like a foreign correspondent hotel memory. Foreign correspondents are always quoting taxi drivers. This is awful, but I'm on deadline in the Zhenghua Hotel, and the guy comes with the room service because I don't even have time to eat, and there's that, the little leather folder thing that the bill is in. So he gives it to me so I can sign my name. And in ink, on the inside cover of that leather folder thing, he had written in English, "Thank you, people." And when I opened the folder and I saw it, I looked up and my eyes met his eyes and we couldn't talk. the torrent of words had ended, and we both knew that the room was bugged. But I knew what he was saying. He was saying, thank you for writing what you're writing right now, and keep up the message and the talk to the outside world. It was a very, I mean, I went on to like a career in human rights advocacy, so it was a very defining moment for me.